I just picked up this Harbor Freight cordless grease gun. I've never used a cordless grease gun before, a power grease gun. I've never used one. I'm used to my regular one, and I'm a little bit concerned about the dispersion of grease, and I know you can adjust it, but I'm used to, like, I kind of know what I get out of each pump, and I'm not sure how that's gonna go. So we're gonna try it out. I don't know if I'm gonna think the thing's huge and heavy and awkward and a pain, but we're gonna find out. Well, I've already answered my question on whether or not it's going to be bulky. When it comes with a shoulder strap, it's going to be bulky. So that's kind of slick because it's always the end of the grease gun that flops around and gets everything greasy and is annoying to deal with. So I like that. It is kind of heavy, but I like the long hose on it because you can put it on a shoulder strap and just walk around. So far, I'm liking this thing, and I think I'm gonna I've got a 2.5 amp hour battery. You don't need, you're not gonna be walking around with this thing for 8 hours, at least I'm not. So I think I'm just gonna put my small battery on it to limit the amount of weight that I add to it. So there's a little tag that came with it. It says, important, remove air pocket before pumping grease. So we're gonna do that. This red and tacky grease by Lucas, this is my favorite stuff, so that's what we're gonna load in this. It's the same stuff I got in my regular grease gun. The first thing I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna retract the plunger. Okay, now we should be ready to unscrew this. So I've unscrewed the tube from here, and this is all kind of a greasy mess because they really had this thing all loaded up with grease, but we're going to slide this in, insert it back in here, put the plunger back in here, and then there's an air bleeder right here that we're going to open up, and then we can let the plunger go back in, push it in like that, and theoretically that should let the air out. I'm going to tighten it back down. There we go. Ooh. All right, that's moving some grease. It's got a nice LED. Oh, look at that. There's an on-off button for that LED. I just installed this lower control arm with a ball joint, and there's a Zerk right here. So we're gonna pop it on there. It's a pretty firm fit, which is nice. Sometimes they're not. I'm actually gonna not touch it. Normally I'd hold it. I'm gonna not touch it and see how well it works here. And it's leaking, so and it's leaking everywhere. So I don't know if this is a Zerk problem. Sometimes you get a Zerk that's kind of jammed, or if this grease gun fitting is terrible. So we're gonna try a different grease gun. We're gonna clean all this slop off of here. And we're gonna try this again with my usual grease gun. And look at that. Works like a charm. So, minus 10 points for the Harbor Freight gun. To be fair, to give it another shot, we're gonna put this on here. Same thing. So, the good news is that these just unscrew. So, I don't know, it's probably not worth going back to Harbor Freight to complain about it. I'm just going to get myself a better Zerk fitting, and beyond that, it seems like the gun's pretty capable. It is a bit heavy, but it's convenient because it's got such a long hose. So, we're going to get a different fitting, and we're going to try it out on some other stuff. Okay, we're back at it here. I ordered up a lock and lube grease gun fitting here. I did a little bit of research on YouTube, and that seems to be the one of choice. So we're gonna throw that on this Harbor Freight grease gun, and then I've got Fiesta sitting on the lift here. We're gonna grease the front lower ball joints, and we're gonna see if this grease gun works once we get this crappy fitting swapped out. Got the lock and lube fitting on here now. Man, was that thing tight. But I just put this end in the vice grip and a 14mm wrench on the fitting and took it off. That was the way to do it though, with how tight it was. Easy enough to install this, and now I've got the strap on this thing. It's hanging on my side. This isn't gonna be a review of the lock and lube, but we'll mention it as long as we're doing it. So that went on there quite easy. And then we'll just reach down, pull the trigger here. And that is leaking a little bit. But I got grease coming out the top. Not getting a good shot of that, but there is absolutely grease coming out the top, along with a bunch of grease coming out the bottom. So I think there's no winning. We'll move over to the other side here. Okay. Oh, and I knew I was pumping a bit in there. I've got a bunch coming out on the inside there. So, and we leaked out less on this side. So I'm not sure what the deal is with, maybe I've got some bad zerks too here. But either way, I am liking this thing now at this point, and maybe I'm just bound to have grease leaking out. It's hit and miss with the regular fittings. They weren't always perfect. So maybe I shouldn't expect anything different with this other stuff. But anyways, there you go. That is how it worked. My outlook on this thing overall is pretty good. It's interesting because even with the larger fitting on here, the little rubber cap still stretches enough to easily fit over it. And it still fits in this little holder on the side here. Although I wonder if it'll hold onto the cap there if I go to pull it out. It was doing that with the factory size one also. Anyways, I think that was a nice update. Still leaking some grease out. I don't know. I haven't used it enough to give you a long-term update, but I think I'm gonna like it. I think it will be handy to have a power grease gun around. It is a little bit big. I do like that it has a strap, although it's interesting because that is how it hangs when you're using the strap. I would have expected it to sit more like upright like that, but that's all right. The light on here is kind of cool, but it's kind of useless if you've got this hanging by the strap, because it's never going to be lighting up what you're actually working on. So the light I could take or leave, but otherwise it seems like a nice unit, and I'll keep using it, and I'll post any updates down in the description. Otherwise, I'll link in the description and all that. So if you're thinking about getting this, I would probably recommend just upgrading to, another style connector like that. Maybe you won't have a defective one. I think my first one was 100% defective, and this was a $30 part, so it definitely cost a few bucks to upgrade that. But all in all, I still got this thing cheap enough that I think it's a worthwhile way to go.